pigmented foundation. But what happens is the layering effect as you're laying it on, it doesn't warm into the skin. It doesn't look as natural as a cream will look. So when I am custom blending a cream, I'm using that mortar and pestle to go in and to blend those colors together because it's more of a solid product. Now it's a cream and I'm softening it down with the mortar and pestle, but I know Maria has probably showed you how to go in and custom blend foundation and we're stirring it. You can't do that with a camouflage cream. The product is a stiffer product to work with. So that's what the use of the mortar and the pestle is with it. You can see to the left of that, I have some hand sanitizer. And to the left of that, I have some alcohol that I will spray on especially my tools when I am getting ready to work with them. Of course, I always clean up everything afterwards. And then I've got facial wipes there because when I'm going through my testing procedure, I'm putting product on, I'm analyzing it, I'm taking it off. I'm putting it on, analyzing, taking it off until I get to the point where I can lay it on the skin and it blends right out onto the skin area. So these are your tools and application. So your blending palette, okay, that you're going to be working off of. The stainless steel spatulas, because they're going to clean up really easy for you. Now, for many, many years, and I still do many times, it really depends, I am going to apply with my finger, and I am using my middle finger right through here to apply. When you pick the product up, the key is it's a rolling patting motion. So I tell people, you're going to start here and you're going to work your way across, overlapping, overlapping as you work the product across. By applying it with your hand, again, it warms it down. If I do go in and apply it with a sponge in that stippling motion, then I may go back, warm my hands up after I've gone in with my hand sanitizer and gone in and just place my hands on the skin to warm the product, to that kind of melt into the skin a little bit more and create a very natural look with it. Of course, when I work with these types of creams, I always work with a synthetic brush. And the reason for that is because the product will slide and glide off of your synthetic brush more compared to a natural hair brush in working with it. Also, your synthetic brushes are going to clean up better. And to clean my synthetic brushes, I use Dawn dishwashing detergent. It cuts everything, you know, even when we're doing custom blend, if we're doing pigments or various things like that, and you get lipstick pigment on you, or on your clothes, I should say, to get it off, I could go home and I put Dawn dishwashing detergent on, just let it set, and that's going to cut the oil and take that away from it. Next, the flat top brush, that can be a stipple to put that on also if you want to just layer a little bit more powder. You saw the variety of sponges, the puffs, the custom blend mortar tools, hands, and other things that I talked about. So, technique of application. First of all, you always want to lubricate the skin before you start. And as I said earlier, and they have not done an exfoliation on their skin, take an extra 5 minutes to do that, because in doing something like this, you always are doing it in a teaching manner. And if you don't teach them the importance of taking care of their skin, and you can tell them, well, it's not going to look quite as good because you've got to really build up of dead skin cells on the surface of the skin, so it's really important to exfoliate. What that person sees is the end result. What they don't remember are things that you have said. So I take that time. Once, it tells you in the second sentence, once you have the correct color, you're going to apply it in those thin layers. Don't try to apply this too quickly, and don't try to apply too much at one time. If you do that, it's, first of all, it tells you the color is not going to look right. The color is always going to look, and it's going to look heavier on the skin. So the key to it is apply more natural looking repeated layers. Now, the next sentence down is really important. It says, do not overwork the area or you start lifting your product and your color off the skin. So as you've gone in and you're working this and you're putting it down, or even if you're working with the sponge and you're laying it down, if you continue to work and work in the same area because your sponge or your finger is a little bit tacky at that point, now what happens is you start lifting the product off of the skin at that point. The other thing is, I tell people when you are doing this, what you want to do, if you're covering, let's say, an entire face, you want to go in, do a light layer over the entire face. Go back and do a light layer over the entire face. Okay. Then you may find at that point that there are some areas that were a little bit more pigmented, and you need to build the color up. So at that point, now you're going to go back and you're going to work on building your color just in that area. But let's say it's a complete side of the face over here. You just don't want to go to one area and work and work and work and work. You want to, again, work that entire area, go back, work that entire area, go back, work the entire area. So it's just, I feel the same way with makeup application. If you are applying makeup and you are going for more coverage, don't continue to work so long in just one area. Blend it out, work it out at that point. Now, another problem happens if you're working over dilated pores, or because I do a lot of work with burns, I mean, there can be holes, there can be lines, you're dealing with dimensional skin from scar tissue with that. So the key is you need to work that product in. I found the technique that works the best for that is to take that synthetic brush and very lightly, you're going to go in and you're going to do a little swirling motion. Okay, and by doing that little swirling motion into that area, it works the products into the dimension of the skin. And I will do this also with foundation on just a regular client. So let's say you're working with a client and they had oily skin, they had dilated pores on their skin, and sometimes I'm sure you find when you go to apply that foundation, you can see these little holes around the area. Again, that little swirling motion with the brush helps to smooth that out. So using the tip of the brush, swirling it, don't put any product on the brush. Work the product in that is already laying on the skin at that point. Next, what about lines? Okay, so example, right here, the nasolabial fold line, what you can find with a client or up here in the smile lines, because I'm talking with my client, I'm having them talking with me at the same time, getting motion in their face, you will find that product can settle into these areas. Once you find towards the end of your application, the product is settled into a line area, all you're going to do is you're going to take, and there's two ways you can do this. You can take your brush and you can run right through the line, okay, and that will take it out. The other thing that I like to do is that tells me I need to warm that product a little bit more. Again, I've got sanitized hands. I'm going to go in and I'm just going to press lightly into those areas and help the product melt, spread just a little bit. So the key when you're doing this type of work, period, is keep your pressure light. You don't want a lot of pressure. The more heavier your pressure, the more you lift product as you lay down. You put it down, you lift it up. You put it down, you lift it up. So keep your pressure light. Now, case studies. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some different pictures of clients that I've worked with. So these are aesthetic clients. I got to be honest, I haven't spent a lot of time working with plastic surgeons with aesthetic clients. My direction was more medical and more serious clinical. I was working with more dermatological disorders, congenital, accidental things, various stuff like that. But psychology is psychology. And it doesn't matter what you've been through. And I think especially a person who's had aesthetic surgery, they have that time frame of healing to go through. And so they're just as distraught about that as somebody who might have, well, maybe not have a burn, but somebody who might have scleroderma or lupus, or somebody who might have a port wine stain, something like that direction. So this client had laser done. When laser is done, it ends up creating redness into the areas that it's done, and it just goes through its stages of healing for that client. So in working with this individual, the Camouflage cream is only applied pretty much in the areas that are needed. And that is underneath the eye, a little bit more around the eye. I did bring it down around the nose because of some breakout right through here. And then I went in at that point and applied regular foundation on the rest of the face and just did a regular makeup that suited her as an individual. This woman had a bluff done underneath her eyes. And so it left, and this is a few stages later, so you can see it's darker, it's not red. And remember, bruising can have a tendency to drop down on the area. So very pretty simple. This was just Camouflage applied underneath the eye area. Again, now this is when I was talking about this earlier. When you are applying and working in a situation like this, you need to apply some eye cream underneath the eye. Just make sure that it's not a heavy, thick type of eye cream that you're working with, because that will cause the product to crease too easy at that point. So I lay that down, I give it some time to absorb, and then what I might do is I might go in, take a tissue, and every client's a little bit different, and just lay it underneath the eye and just run my hand across lightly just to lift up any excess oils or moisturizer that is sitting on the very surface of that area, and applying that. Now, this woman had laser done all over her face, and she ended up,
let's go downstairs.
Somebody needs to turn their microphone off and mute. Thank you. Okay. So she ended up getting a yeast infection all over her entire face. She did not know that she had a predisposition for diabetes. And that's something very important to know when a laser is being done. So although you can't see in the picture to the left, it looked like she had little whiteheads all over her entire face. And this woman was distraught. She was a mess because of that. So in working with her, it was reassurance at the same time that, you know, this is going to go away. It's going to look so different. Do not pick on this, because that was the other thing she was starting to do. Just leave it alone. This will heal on its own. And so in many times, you know, it's just talking with the patient and reassuring them in an aesthetic situation that this is going to go away. It's only a temporary condition that you're working with right now. And her face was so hard to dry from the crusting on at this point. But I did apply, of course, Camouflage all over her entire face with that, even her eye area, because they did the upper eye besides the lower part of the eye at the same time. She cried when we were done. She said, oh my gosh, she said, I have been so upset about this. I have just been crying my eyes out. I didn't know what to do. I kicked myself because why did I do this to begin with? And it was the one thing that helped her get through it. So as I said earlier, when you're working with clients with Camouflage and Paramedical Camouflage, it really has a lot to do with psychologically how that person feels. This was under eye bluff that was done. Again, you can see the healing process, how it's dropped down underneath her. And again, just following it with regular makeup at that point. And then this one was a real neurotic woman. She was difficult to work with because she wanted such perfection. And I mean, one little tiny thing off and she was like off in another world with it. I finally got her to calm down. You know, I went in first of all, and I did just the one side of her face. Okay, because she wasn't a makeup wearer before this. So you notice the makeup I put on her is very soft and gentle, you know, to finish off with. So she again, and I find this a lot with aesthetic patients, is she was going, why did I do this to myself? I can't believe I did this to myself. So we are there almost as psychologists sometimes, just trying to calm them down, give them patience, let them know this will end. So with her, Camouflage was applied all over her entire face. Now, let's go into some dermatological conditions. And the first thing I want to talk to you about is scleroderma. Scleroderma is a condition that has to do with the autoimmune system. And they call it a petrifying of the body because it has to do with the collagen elastin fibers in the body. And if you think about it, you have these collagen elastin fibers around all of your internal organs, besides within our skin. So many clients that have scleroderma, you do not see anything as far as a difference on the surface of the skin. It is affecting them more internally with it. But clients that you do see that has scleroderma that has affected the skin, you can see all these little red marks around the face. And what happens is that their skin becomes very firm, becomes very hard. It's almost like touching a piece of wood because, again, like I said, it's a petrifying of the body. And, you know, this lady said to me, she said, because I tell everybody, you know, it's very important that at the end of the day, you clean your skin, you wipe it off, you do a nice conditioning treatment on your skin at night and let it rest. And she said, Nancy, I just can't do that. She said, I can't look in the mirror and see this way. She said, I'm afraid, what if something would happen in the middle of the night and I had to run out of my house and people would see what I look like, what I really look like. And she said, what I would do is I get up in the morning, I take my shower, I clean my skin, and I immediately reapply my product onto my face. So, you know, again, we can guide them as much as we can, but it's up to them to take it and take that other step further at that point. So again, with this, the camouflage is applied all over the entire face with it, you know, and the blend going down onto the neck and creating that kind of blend. This is another lady, okay, with her scleroderma. Now, her skin still had some pliability to it. It wasn't quite as firm and as hard as the last patient you just saw with it. And she was a delightful lady, you know, she loved it. She felt great. She was my advertising person for the scleroderma group. I found when I started working in clinical like this, before I got involved in paramedical camouflage, I was working with psychologists and psychiatrists with their patients on self-esteem, self-image. Okay. Once a patient was feeling better on the inside, then they would send them to me and I would work with them on the outside. And you probably find this with some women. I found with especially a lot of these women that the therapist would send me when they would stand, of course I had a mirror in front because to teach them, they had to be able to see, plus they would have a hand mirror that they could hold at the same time. And I could barely get their head up so I could even work with them. And then so many times, by the time I was done, man, they were throwing their hair back. They had that arm over the chair. You could see the difference in how they felt. And that was always such a reward for me when I do this type of work. So Tony, a beautiful lady, you know, she passed away probably about 5 years. In fact, all the patients that you see with scleroderma have already passed away, unfortunately. But again, what they kept always saying to me, it made me feel normal. It made me not think of what I was dealing with in my life at that point. Next is vitiligo. Okay, when you think of vitiligo, probably the most famous person you think of with vitiligo was Michael Jackson. Okay, and he really did have vitiligo. I mean, I know he had lightning treatments that had been done on his skin earlier, but he did have vitiligo. Vitiligo is a loss of pigmentation in the skin. Health-wise, they're okay, but the problem with it is when you don't have melanocyte cells into an area of your body, and what the purpose of those are is so the sun can't penetrate, those UVB rays can't penetrate down in the body that deep. It takes away that kind of protection. So with vitiligo, it's important that they do have some type of product on. Good sunscreens would be one direction with it, and then going into makeup. Again, it doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman. It all depends on how that person feels. This was the greatest guy. His name was Mr. Hess. And you can see his vitiligo is a little bit more on the lower part of his face, down around his nose, nasolabial fold, down around his chin, going down. Now, I don't take it down onto the body parts. He had a shirt on. He just took his shirt off, you know, and had his t-shirt on when I was working with him, because it is going to rub off a little bit onto the clothing. There's just no way around that. So we don't have anything that has created such a hard waterproofing effect that you don't get a little rub off with this type of product, or any type of product, to be quite honest. So again, when you're working with a man, what you're doing is you're doing a localized application. You only want to put the product in the area needed. So that is why it's extremely important at that point that you're matching that color up to the surrounding skin that you're working on. Rosacea, it's huge today. Every time I turn around, somebody is telling me that they've been diagnosed with rosacea. You know, and remember, one of the big things that cause rosacea is stress. And then we know that with rosacea, the sun, alcohol, spicy foods, various things like that can aggravate it and kick it up. This gal, when she first came to me, her face was a lot redder than you see in this picture. And especially on one side of her face, it was really red. So I'm talking with her and I'm asking her questions. I'm just trying to learn. I'm trying to learn about her. I'm trying to learn about her lifestyle. You know, what is she used to doing? Has she been wearing makeup? Various things like that. And she worked in the postal system, and she was a mail sorter. And so she told me that it would get stuffy and it would get hot. So what she did was she had a little fan that she had over here, and she turned that fan on. Well, as you know, if you have constant air blowing into a face, think of it like the wind. What does it do? It dehydrates the skin, right? So not only did it dehydrate her skin because she had rosacea, it inflamed the rosacea on that side of her face also. So we talked about that, and I talked about, you know, put the fan down maybe in your décolleté, you know, and take it there. Don't let it blow right onto your face. So she had a couple of different needs. She wanted to be able to put something on, but not put a face of makeup on when she went to work during the daytime. Then she had her other times when she would want to go out and go out to dinner. She'd love to go to the theater. And at that point, she wanted to be able to do her makeup so it looked like she didn't have rosacea. So I taught her two different ways to apply it. First of all, again, matching the color of the skin, extremely important. Going back to my mortar and pestle and blending those products out. And so what I would do is I'd blend product that match the surrounding skin, not the redness of the skin, but the surrounding skin that didn't carry that strength of redness. And so for her days of work, I taught her how to go in and apply the camouflage lightly, only in the areas where she carried redness, but not totally obliterate it out. Don't block it out at that point, because it looks natural to carry, if you notice where her rosacea is, right around the cheeks, around the nose, right here on the front of the chin. So that's very natural to have some redness in the skin in those areas. Somebody needs to turn their microphone off, please. So check those. Then, so we just applied a sheer, allowing some of the pinkness to come through, and it just had a great natural look for those days that she was not wearing any makeup. Then, as you can see to the right, then I showed her how to go in, totally block it out, and then go in and put a regular makeup on at that point. So for rosacea, depending on the patient that you're working on and depending what the condition looks like on their skin, you may not always want to go in and totally obliterate all the color within the area. Sometimes you might just want to softly tone that color down. Next, discoid lupus. Now, lupus is another autoimmune system that you're dealing with. But what you will see, and you normally don't see it on the surface of the skin, the surface of the skin is called discoid lupus. With regular lupus, what you will find is that sometimes they can get what's called a butterfly rash. So right across the cheek, across the nose, they can get redness into that area. It doesn't stay. Sometimes it depends on their stress level. It could depend on their medication. It could depend on the heat, because high heat, humidity can aggravate that a little bit for them. And then with discoid lupus, what they actually get is they get these open ulcerations on the skin. And what you will see next, when they heal, it actually looks like a burn on the skin. Okay, so of course, this woman being dark skinned in nature, it showed up with more pinkness in the skin. Sometimes with your fair skinned individuals, it might show up more hypopigmented, or it might show up more with a more darkening and more of a yellow brown coloration that you might see into the area. And as you can see, she also had a wig on because she had it on her head also. And so she had very little hair growth in certain areas of her head. So she did wear a wig full time. She could take that wig, pull it back a little farther, and use some of her front hair to go around. So it looked very natural on her. She did a great job with that. And the person who was working with her hairpiece was very helpful with her with this. Also, as you can see onto the right brow, the discoid lupus went across and scarred that area. So she had no brow hair of growth in that, and she would never have any brow hair that would grow into that area. So of course, with this application, the first thing we went is I went into a yellow, and I went in and I neutralized the yellow olive undertone into the pink areas that you saw. So we neutralized that color down and out. From there, this was a two-step process. From there, then I went in with a color to match and applied that around the entire face. Now, as you can see to the right, she looks like she's lighter, but this was in a room that I was in. I did not have great lighting in it, and my camera flashed really hot, and that's why she looks a little more washed out over onto the other. But you can see the blend down through her neck. It had a great match. And again, this was something that she loved and she did every day. And I always heard over and over and over again, it makes me feel normal. I know, makes me feel normal. Sorry, it chokes me up right now when I'm saying that. Next thing we're dealing with is congenital conditions. And a congenital condition could be a birthmark that you're dealing with. There's other abnormalities that people get with congenital conditions. Port wine stains are the main thing that we're working with. And that is called the hemangioma. Those are your red port wine stains. So I met this young girl, very young. I think she was 9 years old when we first met. Her dermatologist had recommended that we get together and work together. Now, if you look at the bottom of her face, first of all, you see her skin is fairly fair in nature, and she had a very deep, very dark port wine stain. And also across the lip area, if you look down through, when I first met her, her bottom lip was about this wide and came out and hung down. I mean, I've never seen it before, but that port wine stain, that hemangioma, had affected that mucous membrane of her lip area and really enlarged it. In this picture, you see to the left, if you look right in the center of the lip area, you can see a scar. They did a lip reduction on her. It was phenomenal. I could not believe that they could do something like this. But they went in, they did an incision right through the inner part of the mouth. They did the incision there. They cut a lot of that out and then sutured it back together at that point. Next, being a young girl that does not wear makeup, I'm not going to be putting makeup all over her entire face. So when you're working, like I said, with men, and when you're working with kids, you're keeping your product localized. So that's why, again, it gets into doing a good color match on them. So over to the right, what we did first of all with her skin being very fair, I went in with a beige. So it was a light beige tone, and I obliterated the port wine stain. So I just cleared and knocked that totally out. Then I went back and I created a color that matched the rest of her surrounding skin. And that product is only applied from this area and down through there. So there is no camouflage product. You can see her freckles up on the upper part of her face. There's no product applied in that. That's where color matching is extremely important when you are working with your patients. Okay, another port wine stain, not as deep, not as dark. Again, another younger girl, did not want to apply product all over her entire face. Okay, I think this was summertime when I first worked with her at this point, because you can see she carries a little more tan. I live outside of Cleveland, Ohio, so we don't have sun year round. And so with this, again, the camouflage was localized. Now, with the coloring of her skin, which was darker and carried more yellow into it, with her, I neutralized that port wine stain first. So I used something that was more yellow undertoned with a little bit of olive into it to block that out. And then again, matched her surrounding skin to lay her camouflage product on top of that. And then next you have your nevus, which can be brown, blue, or even black in color. So also you hear them referred to as a cafe latte when they look like this. Okay, when you see that dark blue color, that's a real true nevus in that direction. And when you do work on something that's blue like that, I use a red color to neutralize and cut the blue in it, and then counterbalance it with a color that is going to match the surrounding skin on top of it at that point. Again, she's a young girl, and I found that I ended up working with quite a few younger girls, a few younger boys also, because they were psychologically having problems, okay? They were becoming more internal with themselves. They weren't feeling full of joy. They weren't communicating with other kids. They were isolating themselves. And so the purpose of this is to help them feel more normal again, you know, to help them feel that they can go out there and hang with the rest of the kids and they don't look any different than they do. And that's exactly how this young lady felt also. Next, I'm going to move into some burn injuries. Okay, as I said earlier, burns have been my area of really giving back. When I first started working with this, and I gotta be honest, I didn't know anybody that had these discolorations. It was a brand new world to me. But like I said, I had gone to a seminar, I saw this person speak on this, and it just spoke to me, and I said, this is what I want to do. So the first thing I did, I thought, okay, well, I'm a seasoned makeup artist, I can do this. So I went and bought product that I played with, and I thought there's a little bit more to this than what I thought. And so I did find a place, this was years ago, that I could go and get some training in it. Unfortunately, we did not actually have any conditions to work on, so it was all done in theory. So I found that when I did start working with actual conditions, you know, it was a learning curve for me, and that's how I learned to do things. I had some theory in my head, but sometimes theory doesn't always work the way you think it's going to work. So you have to let your mind go, and you have to let it kind of get carried away and think, okay, what would I do? What can I do? What should I do? You know, to come up with answers. Once I had been working, and I was really blessed. I was on actually TV. I was on a TV program with one of the therapists that we were talking about together, and how once the patient is feeling better on the inside, that I work with on the outside. I had mentioned in that program that I was going to start doing paramedical camouflage, working with individuals with discoloration and disfigurement. And wouldn't you know, somebody called me right after that. Actually, it was a woman that was the president of the Scleroderma Association, and said, can you come in and do a program for us? We have been looking for somebody like you. I said, I would love to. How do you spell it? Okay. So I looked it up on the internet, so I learned what it was, but I still didn't know what it was. So I called her up and I said, by any chance, can you recommend somebody that I can work with before I come in to do this program? Because I had no idea what it looked like. And she had referred this wonderful gentleman to me, you know, and I went up to his house actually and I worked with him, and he was so charming. And he had had this condition for quite a while. And I mean, his face just had red marks all over it. And when we were done, the smile went from ear to ear with him. He said, "Oh my gosh, where were you earlier in my life?" And it just like was the thing that kicked me in the butt and spurred me on at that point. So I first became involved with the Scleroderma Association. Also, because I had my own business, I was out marketing. So I was going to the hospitals. I was talking at nurses associations and medical association meetings and various things like that, because 36 years ago, people didn't know what this work was. This was brand new. And our talk was always about the psychology of it. Okay. So yes, this is what it looks like, but it's done to help the patient feel more normal at this point. So this is one of the gals that I worked with the burn injury. You can see when you look at the picture to the left, how she was burned around the eye area. You can see on the lower part of her face, you can see she only had the front part of her brow. She didn't have the end part of her brow. And you don't totally see her hair. Well, you do a little bit when you looked at the before picture. She also was burnt on her head. And with that part right down the middle, it just kind of emphasized it at that point. So when I did her makeup, okay, first of all, being able to block out the discoloration, create normal brows for her, and then what I did was I took her hair and I just parted it over to the side and, covered that bald spot that she had right through there. Now, since that time, she ended up going in and they did tissue expanders in her. So I don't know if you understand this, but when you are dealing with burned skin, as it heals and as time goes on, it shrinks and it becomes harder and starts pulling on areas. Well, what they can do on the head area, if there is enough skin left on the head, if it's thick enough and there's enough hair left, they will go in there and they put these balloons underneath the skin, and then they start blowing them up. Okay, so it expands the skin. They're called tissue expanders. It expands the skin out, and then they keep those in for a variety of times. When she had hers in, it looked like Mickey Mouse ears because they were both on this side. We used to laugh about it. It was funny. You got to laugh about something, right? And so after that, what they were able to do was they brought it up, and she now can create and has normal hairline at this point. Of course, at that point, she didn't. Okay, this is another patient. And as I was talking about, when you have a burn and it shrinks, it starts to pull areas down on the skin. What you see on both sides of her face is called the Z-plasty. So the surgeon goes in and they do a zigzag pattern into it to release the pull of the skin. So you can see it was done on both sides of her face. All right. So again, going in, keeping, again, the camouflage more localized with this. I just put a regular foundation on the rest of her face and then just camouflage just right in this area and right around her mouth area. And then she wasn't a big makeup wearer. We just did a very gentle makeup application. So when you are working with the women, you are normally going to follow this with makeup. And what's really important is most of these women that I find I've worked with are not wearing a lot of, they're not looking for a glamour makeup. They just want something soft, easy, something gentle. They're not looking to stand out in a crowd. They have been standing out. They are looking to just blend in with that crowd. And again, this is what she looked like from the front. This is another lady. Her name is Heike. Heike is from Germany, and her ex-husband's girlfriend threw acid in her face. I mean, this picture you see to the left, I couldn't show you the before shot. It was way too much. I found being out, and I have a lot more very intense slides, and in medical, I would show those. And for doctors and for nurses who didn't work in the burn community especially, had a very hard time looking at those. Heike has done phenomenal and looks great. So as you see, she has no brows with that. And you can see the discolorations on her. You can also see her bottom lip. Now, what you will find with burn survivors is they go through numerous surgeries. They can only do so much at a time. So numerous surgeries that they do go through. Now her bottom lip is a little bit more like more of a normal lip. This woman is got the greatest attitude in the world. She is incredible. And she worked in the cosmetic industry and a counter girl before this happened. So she always loved makeup, and that was always really important to her. So I worked with Heike quite a bit, you know, through her various surgeries and helping her. And you should see this girl now. And I am so proud to tell you, with her attitude, and she believes her role in life is to share with others and to help other people. She is now got a job at Macy's. Unfortunately, everybody's closed right now, but working for Chanel at the cosmetic counter. I thought, what a big and a huge move from them. You can still see that she has some burns, you know, but again, her skin, she's looking quite good. She's really learned to do her makeup well, and she is just a blessing to so many people that are out there. So she's a great gal. I do want to tell you this one story. When we were doing that anniversary that I was telling you about earlier with the getaway weekend with the adult burn survivors, and I took my airbrush unit with me, we also had set up in this room, we had like 3 cheer masseuses going on. So the firemen were there, nurses were in this room, and they're going, this guy by the name of Jim was also there. And they said, you got to work with Jim. You got to work with Jim. And, you know, macho guy. What happened with him is that he was doing welding and it exploded and major burn. Okay. So when you look at Jim, Jim's face was all red. And actually, it looks much redder in person than you see in this photograph here. So he's done with his chair massage and he's kind of, you know, like this. And I go, hey, Jim, come on over here. Let me airbrush you. Okay, so I was just trying airbrush. This was like the first person I had tried my airbrush on. And so I said, okay, just close your eyes. And so I airbrushed Jim, and, you know, it's very relaxing for them. And so when he was all done and I was done with that, I picked up a mirror and I said, okay, Jim, you can open your eyes. And I had this mirror up like this, and he looked into the mirror and he started crying. And he said, oh my God, I never thought I would look like I did before my accident. Now, that guy got in the room crying. And of course he didn't look like he did before he had his accident, but he had not seen his skin in a normal skin coloring sunset. He's one of the guys that I taught how to do airbrush makeup. Okay, and he got an airbrush unit that I gave to him to continue to do it at this point. So again, it doesn't matter whether you're male, whether you're female, the psychology of it, the feel of it is always going to be the same. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation today. You know, this, as I said earlier, to me is the ultimate in working with patients on the psychological aspect of it. And it takes the right heart to do it. And I found for me, it's been a true blessing in my life. So I want to thank you for being with me today. I wish you the best with your careers. I think you're going into a wonderful industry. I've been in it 46 years. I love it. I've done a lot of different things in it. You want to keep growing. You want to keep your education up. And the world is just a place of happiness when I'm in around it, I feel. So good luck to you, and thank you so much. Maria, I'll turn this back over to you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It was wonderful, so inspiring. I'm just reading through some of the comments, and I know everyone has enjoyed your presentation. Again, those of you who were jumping on midpoint, if you have not done so already, please make sure that you are typing in your full name, your school name, and location if you are from a school that has multiple locations in the chat box. If your information does not appear in the chat box, there is no way I can track you to prove that you logged in and send attendance over. So again, full name, school name, and location into the chat box. I will stay logged in for just a couple more minutes to give you guys time to type in your information into the chat box.
Bye, Marie.
Bye, Nancy. Thanks again.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
So I'm just going to stay logged in just a little longer. For those of you who are jumping or who jumped on late, if you do not hear the attendance requirement, you need to type in your full name, school name, and location if you are from a campus that has multiple locations into the chat box so that I can track your attendance.
Could you type in what foundation she likes to use in, please?
I'll have to ask her. I'm pretty sure she's using the Colorlab since she works for Colorlab, and then she adds the coverage enhancers. But I can double check for her camouflage makeup and get back to you.
Thank you.
I can't, like, when I try to put my information in, it won't let me send it into the chat.
What's your name?
Erica Kreger.
And what school are you with?
Tricoci University in Libertyville, Illinois.
Okay, I got you down.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, if you have not done so already, please make sure that you type in your full name, school name, and location into the chat box so that I can send your name and information over to your schools.
Okay, say hi.
Hi.
My daughter is like, keeps coming to the screen. She wants to be seen.
You deserve to be seen because you can't leave the house. We're all stuck. People want to see people. I totally get it.
You can say hi to my class. Say hi, class.
What school's mom from?
Long Island Beauty School, Hempstead, New York.
Oh, you guys are all, you're East Coast.
Yeah. Say hi.
Hello, my name is Cynthia.
Tricoci, Glendale Heights. I used to work at that location. I worked for Tricoci's for a couple of years. Back in the day, a very long time ago.
Hi, I'm not able to send.
What's your name?
Cynthia Bruce.
Cynthia, you said?
Yes, Cynthia Bruce, Bruce, and it's Spectrum Beauty Academy.
All right, I will add you to their roster. Is anybody else having a hard time typing into the chat box? For those who are logged in. All right, I'm going to stay in for just a couple more minutes. And then, so in the meantime, if you have not done so already, please make sure that you are typing your full name, school name, and location if you are from a school that has multiple locations into the chat box. That way I can get your information over to your school. school is Heidi and Haley with? I just saw the message that they jumped off before they heard the attendance. Eastern Academy. Okay. Which Jacocchis in Illinois? There are multiple Illinois locations. I need to know Chicago, Glendale Heights, Rockford, Libertyville. I'm trying to remember which locations. Liberty. Okay, thank you. All right, guys, I'm staying on 1 more minute. So if you have not done so already, please make sure you type in your full name, school name, and location if you are from a school that has multiple locations into the chat box so that I can send your information over to your schools for your e-learning or distance learning credits, however your school is administering those.
Did you get mine? I'm not sure if it went through. It'd be for Samantha Leroux.
Yep, I got you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, everyone. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I hope you guys enjoyed the webinar. I'm not positive. I know somebody put a question if I can send the PowerPoint. This PowerPoint does not belong to me. It's not one of mine, so I'm not sure I'll be able to send the PowerPoint. But you guys will definitely be getting certificates sent to your school administrators to give you once schools open back up. So again, thank you guys so much and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye.